Hello everyone and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, where we watch every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. I'm Sean.
I'm Tennille.
And today we are taking a look at the 1975 film Bedbug, 1975. Also known as Mayakovsky's Laughing.
Yeah.
Or Mayakovsky Laughs. It's a translation thing.
Right.
This is from Soyuz Multifilm in Russia.
In the USSR.
Yes. Yep. Back again.
Back again. Guess who's back? Back again. It's Russia. First thing I want to say about this film.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a Russian citizen, nor am I authority on USSR history. So I want to admit that most of this movie went right over my head because it is very much a political movie about things going on both in current times and in the past. Well, current times
as in
1975, yeah. And the past is in USSR 1920s. And thank you so much yet again to Redway 2, who is trying their best, bless their heart, to explain this stuff to me, but it still mostly goes over my head. I will do my best to try to repeat what they have told me and just pass on that information, and we can talk about it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you I knew what happened in this film.
There is okay, so the movie is this is a very mixed media film. There is puppetry going on. There's stop motion to look like puppetry, even though it's very obviously stop motion and not puppet, like just regular old puppets. There's animation. There's cutout animation. And then it's all kind of strung together with live action segments. The movie starts with some older guy coming in and saying that he's here as an authority on Mayakovsky.
Mayakovsky, yeah.
Yeah. And he's here to tell you when the film does a good job or doesn't at portraying Mayakovsky's work, which is weird.
This film feels very tongue-in-cheek. But
I don't get where the jokes are.
Yeah, it's like it's making fun of itself, but also telling a story that doesn't make any sense to a couple of Americans from the year 2020 who have not studied Russian history, who obviously know nothing about Russian history of 1920 and 1975.
Or the original source material, which is the play this is based off of Mayakovsky's work, The Bedbug.
Yeah, so most of this is lost to us. Here's the plot as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm not going to get a lot of the semantics correct, I'm sure.
Right.
But there's this layabout musician guy that's not really part of the unions, the working class, and he's not really part of, like,
the upper middle class.
He's just a layabout guy, and he's got a girlfriend who is part of, like, the working class, and she's trying to better the world, and then she dies, so he marries some random chick in the upper middle class, but then at the wedding feast, there's a fire and everyone dies except for him because he somehow gets frozen in ice. And then he's unfrozen in the year 1975. And then while there, they just kind of let him free after a debate of whether they should keep him in a zoo or not, because he's obviously a weirdo from a different time. He's not really human or something. So they release him, and then we transfer into the actual fully animated part, and dude, I wish I could tell you really what was going on, but like he gets drunk in a bowling alley, and then he frees the Loch Ness Monster, and then he goes
Things get very Yellow Submarine.
He performs a musical number for a bunch of hippies that live in barrels out in the middle of a field. I didn't know this was the thing, but okay. But then he like sells out.
Still don't know if this is the thing or if it's just the movie going wild.
Yeah, and then he sells out to the man and becomes like an icon of hippie music, but not an actual hippie, I think. And then there's like a brawl between citizens and the police, and he's caught in the middle, trying to appeal to both sides, but because he's never really taken a side, he doesn't get to be on a side, and instead he just washes away in the ocean and ends up on an iceberg with polar bears, and the movie ends.
Well, okay, but then we have to address the fact that this has very bizarre art language that's going on here at the end, because we're obviously referencing Yellow Submarine in the art direction of the animation.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'll get into why that's interesting later when I tell you what Redway 2 sent me. But then when he gets washed out to sea, we get some very obvious references to that famous Japanese art print.
Yeah, that was weird. Like it
happened several times, and I'm like,
they decided to artistically go after like the crashing wave picture,
which immediately made me think like, okay, is he washing up on the shores of Japan?
No.
Like, no, he's floating out on an iceberg. So I don't get why, because like there's no way that was accidental, right?
Probably not, but I don't know what it's supposed to symbolize.
It's way too specific to accidentally do that, so I don't get why there's a reference there. Yeah, and then he ends up on an iceberg with a bed bug and some polar bears.
Yeah, there's a couple of references throughout the film of referring to things as bed bugs or referring to the guy himself as a bed bug that has consumed a person.
I think it's supposed to be symbolic of the different classes, but
that's the part that
goes over our heads.
Doesn't make sense because we don't really it's obviously some sort of slang term that doesn't translate into English because we don't have anything similar. Would be my guess.
I mean, if I had to guess, it's probably something similar to being called like a leech of society or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that.
Anyway, so then earlier on, there's a whole bunch of different animation styles in this movie. Like we were saying, there's even some direct references to earlier soy multi-film movies, like some of the old puppets they've used, and some of the specific styles of animation with like the cutout animation and stuff that are used. Again, I don't know if these are just references for reference's sake or if they have
a deeper meaning.
I'm not sure.
It's difficult to say.
Yeah. It was interesting, and as people who have watched a lot of this stuff, I can point at it and go, I know what that is.
I know that puppet.
Yeah, I recognize him.
I don't know what it means.
Yeah, I don't get it, but alright. So, anyway, apparently the original play, Bedbug, does take place in the 1920s, around the time that Russia was creating the NEP, or New Economic Deal, something like that. And it was to try to help the economy, blah, 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 blah. And the point of it is that, yes, this guy gets frozen, and then he gets woken up in the future. They put him in a zoo because he can't function in modern society. And modern society is like this pristine utopia place that's very like sterile, and there's no alcohol, and there's no drugs, and everything's perfect kind of thing. So that's why he's put in a zoo. So that's the original play, and obviously they changed things for this movie, which is kind of what that older guy was talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, going into exactly what Red Way 2 was saying, they said, I don't think this story makes sense without historical context, so here's the TLDR. Thank you, Red Way. In the 20s, after the revolution, hyperinflation happened, so to stop it, the Soviet government introduced NEP, the New Economic Policy. There we go, that's what I was trying to say earlier, which opened up a bit of private property. This had spawned a new middle class called the NEP man. So, the original play is about how this guy is trying to get from the working class to the new middle class and is kind of sucking up to both. In the West, not a lot of people know about this period of Soviet history. It's a mess. You had both private property and communal ownership developing at the same time. But in the 70s, Russian people were very nostalgic for the 20s, so a lot of movies were made about them. Which makes sense to me, because that kind of thing happens here all the time too, where, you know, you get a young generation that's very nostalgic for an older generation.
Yeah.
Then Redway 2 says, first, it's very obvious that the film was directed by a bunch of old people trying to tell the youngs what to do. The first song is like a 70s boy band prog rock version of an old Mayakovsky poem. It's basically the 70s version of, hey kids, let's rap about communism. So okay, that was another thing I wanted to talk about with this movie. Reading Redway's comments and then watching the film, it does make it very obvious that this whole film has a very like, hello fellow kids vibe. And wow, look how cool we were in the 20s, man. Aren't we hip and groovy too?
Okay.
Anyway, continuing forward. The director was way over 70 while in the shooting of the film. Second, the old guy that blabs on in the beginning about nonsense. Thank you, Redway. He's kind of a Soviet Roger Ebert. He had a film review TV show back then. He's very meandering, but listen carefully, there's a lot of contradictions and old Soviet doublethink. My personal favorites are when he says things like, well, good thing there's no more bourgeoisie. Wait, there's a couple left. Or actually there's a lot. There's dangerously a lot. Well, whatever.
Cool.
Yeah, I noticed that one too. And then later on says, well, Mayakovsky hated monuments and thought they were evil imperial propaganda, but whatever, we built him a statue anyway.
Cool.
And how the director told him he could criticize the film, but when he said he didn't like that they changed the ending, they shut him up.
Yeah, that was like the last thing he said in the movie, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of saying, I think they should have gone with the original ending of the film, but they decided to do something else, so I guess the directors get to do what they want.
Yeah, and that's the last time you see him.
Yeah.
He doesn't even, like, close out the film, which would make sense because he opened it.
I guess not.
Mm-hmm. So, this movie was made and then put on the shelf by the censors, renamed to M.Laughs to obscure its connection to the play, and then it got re-released on September 3rd, 1976.
Okay, so...
Just as a bit of interesting history, apparently this is a bit of a controversial film, which makes sense, because it's very political.
Okay. Are we gonna get any non-political Russian films here anytime soon again?
I mean, when you are living in a society that is making art for art's sake, because you're not making it for any kind of commercial reason, and, like, you're living in such a turbulent time, like, why would you not make it political?
It's true.
If you're gonna spend that much time making art like that, like, why would you make it not something that you really want to say?
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
It's just, we don't understand
We don't understand it. That's alright.
It's true. These weren't made for us.
Yeah. Further on with Redway's statements, they say, the last segment was styled after Yellow Submarine, which is a big point of rebellion and counterculture back then, because there was no legal way to watch that movie.
Okay.
Probably another reason the film got censored. Also, there's a random sample of a riff from Jesus Christ Superstar played on the bagpipes during the song number. Which, by the way, Redway also says that they like the music in this film, and I have to agree. I thought the music in this film was pretty catchy. Don't know that I would go back and listen to it, on my own, but while the music was playing during the movie, I was like, yeah, bopping my head along with the beats.
Yeah.
Good 70s music. I appreciate good 70s music.
That's fair.
But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Because, like we said at the beginning, this movie kind of goes over our heads and isn't for us. But it's still pretty cool, and the art's great, the music's pretty good. I just don't get it.
Yeah, so if you want to check it out, I really only suggest it for people that are Russian history fanatics.
In which case, maybe you can explain some of this more down in the comments, and we can read it and become more informed.
But past that, I don't feel like there's a whole lot more here. If you want to, skip around to, the last segment with the super
Yellow Submarine.
Super Yellow Submarine 70s style animation, just to watch it.
It's definitely the best part of the film, and,
Yeah.
it really stands out animation and art direction-wise.
The rest of it doesn't really have a lot going for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I have to say.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, next time,
we are actually staying here in Russia because we are watching our first ever remake film. We are watching The Humpbacked Horse again.
Oh my god, it's been so long.
Let's see if we remember what happened in this film.
It's been so long.
See you guys then.
Я сижу в трактире, на душе печаль. Эй, красавица, погоди, постой.